Hello, my name's Susanne. Welcome to the 130th episode of Handmade, from the life of a knitting, singing, writing spinner. Today brings you my 13th ever English episode. So, I'm trying the old computer again because I had so many problems with the recording with the new laptop due to the very precarious connection between my audio interface and the computer. I had to use two adapters, and I'll show you these two adapters, and the what's it called, a Thunderbolt thingy here kept slipping slightly out of the socket on the computer, and then I had a really weird sound or none at all, so it was horrible. So now I'm going back to the old setup because I don't need an adapter. I can just use the Ethernet cable to my interface thing. So I hope this will go really smoothly because there is only 1.5 hours left until my first student comes in. So this episode will be no longer than 1 hour and maybe 25 minutes or so. So I'll just rush through everything. I have no idea what to talk about. Usually I do a general, yeah, you know, the thing where I tell you everything that happened in my life since the last time I recorded an English episode. Okay, I need to slow down, sorry. So last episode I recorded in English was back in December 2018, so just before Christmas. That seems like a lifetime ago. I'm still writing, I'm still working on the same trilogy, and I have just moved the deadline, so my internal deadline for the third in that trilogy, out to end of June, maybe even middle of July, because the writing is not going as fast as I would like it to go. That's totally due to me not sitting down enough. It's also due to renovation. We started in April, and we painted the whole apartment. So in the old part of the house we have like a bedroom, so full apartment, bedroom, living room, bathroom, kitchen. We painted all of that. Last time we did that was in 2001, so it didn't look pretty, and there was a lot of mold, and yeah, you know, things went wrong. And then we decided to finally renovate my mother-in-law's balcony. That took us like 8 days of really hard labor. My knees will probably never be the same again. So I did the whole inside. So I kneeled on stone floor for several days, wielding a sander. That was really fun. Not, but the balcony is done mostly. And yeah, what else? I know there were things, but I can't remember right now. So if you want to know, look on my blog. I've kept up with the daily blogging. I'm still not sure if that's a good idea, and if there are people who want to read that. Well, I know there are people who read that like 2 or 3, but I'm still not sure if that's really interesting to anybody else but me. But well, tell me either way. I don't know how long I'll do that. I have set myself a goal of doing it for 2 years, and then I'll re-evaluate. So the daily journal will probably go on until September, and then I'll see. So let me start with what I worked on since we last talked. So I made gum gum socks for my husband. So sorry, I pulled these out of the dirty socks basket. But well, they could have been wet. So they are finished, as you can see, have been worn several times already and are dirty and in the laundry again. These look much more harmonious than I would have thought when I started out. These were made from 3 different sock yarns, and I think they turned out pretty great. I did a heel flap, which I don't do often these days. Then I also finished the Scary Blithberg socks. So this is the Blithberg pattern by Annie Fletcher. I'm still on an Annie Fletcher kick. I have done other socks since I started discovering her patterns, but I'm still totally enamored with this kind of heel construction. I have learned that this is a strong heel named after a Ms. Strong, and I love it. These socks are really nice and cushy and pretty dense. I'm usually such a loose knitter, but I used 1.25 millimeter needles, and those are, I don't know how many zeros, like a 2 millimeter is 0, so it's 1, 2, 3, it's like 4 zeros. Yeah, very small needles. Love these. Pull these out of the dirty sock basket as well. Then I have the Crazy Tea. This is, I don't know how the pattern's called, Crazy Stripes. I did a cardigan, and then there's a t-shirt pattern as well from Studio Alpha. I don't know her name at the moment, but you'll find that. So this is yarn that I had left over from my Glow-in-Tide knit along. And so this is handspun from merino silk. The merino's dyed and the silk isn't. It's really pretty. And I just divided, so it started at the top. I divided for the sleeves and have started knitting the body. This shows a little bit of the really cool construction. Let me see. So you have short rows, so the stripes go crazy, hence the name. So I've done my first big yellow stripe here. You get stripes that are much bigger on one side than on the other. So the T starts at the back, and then you add stitches for the sleeves and the front, and knit those in one piece. Then you divide the sleeves and put them on hold, and then you start doing the crazy part of the stripes, where the stripes are not equal all around, but they are much bigger on one side, so they go on the diagonal, and that looks really cool. This has been lingering in the project bag for ages, because you have these stripes, and those are like 4-row stripes, and you have very small parts like at the front and on top of the sleeves, and so you have a lot of ends to weave in. And I had decided that I wanted to weave all ends in before knitting further, which meant that the project was lingering for 2 months or more, because I couldn't bring myself to weave the ends in. So I've learned my lesson. Now almost all are woven in, and from here on I will do Russian joints for the for the ends, which means when I start a new color, it's a little bit more work, but you have very neat edges, and everything will be woven in as soon as I'm finished, so that's a good thing. Then I knitted a whole sweater, but it's not quite finished. Very typical for me. I did all the knitting in record time because this is an Owligan by the parents by Kate Davies. She has this really famous owl sweater, and this is the cardigan version of this. The yarn is really heavy. It should have been heavier than that, so I started knitting this with the yarn held double, but I didn't have enough yarn for that, and so I just took a single strand. The knitting is all done. I need to graft the underarm seams, weave in all the ends, get buttons and sew them on, and then it will be finished. This is one of the things that have been laying around forever because I can't bring myself to weave the ends in. I'm pretty sure that I'll do it soon because right now I'm on a finishing kick, which is really nice. I wanted to show you the Dalek hat that I made for my son, but find that the Dalek hat is in the hallway, not here. I'm sorry. So the pattern is called Insulate, and it's a Doctor Who themed hat. I made it in 2 shades of gray from leftover yarn from the blanket that I made for my son, and it has a pattern that looks like it's the TARDIS at first glance, but then on the crown of the hat you have some color work that shows you that no, it's not the TARDIS, it's a Dalek. This is really, really cool. I made that for my son. It's, as I said, 2 colors. It's acrylic because he doesn't do wool, which is really awful, but yeah. And I don't think he has worn it, but it's finished. I had to start it 2 times because I wanted to do a tubular cast on because I like how it's look and it's very stretchy. And I did it wrong, like I should have known. I followed Isolda's tutorial for tubular cast on, and when she said, yeah, you need to knit all the stitches through the back in this row because they'll be the wrong way on the needle. Yeah, mine weren't. So I've knitted the I think almost the whole hat, and then I pulled it to see if it's wide enough and would fit, and you couldn't pull the ribbing. It was just, I don't know, locked. So I had to, I thought about snipping a stitch and do fiddly repairs, but the knitting of the hat went so quick that I just gave up and ripped it back and did it a second time. So my son was very happy with the hat, but he doesn't do hats as well. Only sometimes in the winter it's so cold that I think a hat would be a good idea to have. Then I have my Advent calendar Coriolis socks. So I've done many pairs of Coriolis. This shows you the socks as well as the spinning because I finished this yarn in December, and I just remembered that something went wrong when I did the last podcast recording, and so there is one sock that has, let me see, I pulled 2 needles out, so there are loose stitches here. Yeah, Coriolis is a pattern by Cap Borey. You know how much I love those. I wanted a toe-up sock so I could use up all the yarn, And now this is almost a knee sock, but not quite. And since, I don't know, the yarn came out thinner than I wanted, they're also very tight. And I'm thinking about maybe ripping them back and using the yarn for 2 pairs of socks, or maybe finishing these. And I'm totally indecisive about this. I have no idea what to do, so they are just sitting in the bag. So 2 socks. When I spun this, I made 2 balls that, well, yeah, that were the same. So I divided the fiber in the middle. I even weighed it, so you can see the socks are pretty equal, similar, sorry, for this. But as I said, I'm not quite sure. And I'm also not quite sure that if I make these knee socks, if I will wear them. I really like colorful things, but at the moment I'm not wearing as bright colors as much as I used to. So, as I said, if I finish these the way they are, then I'm not quite sure how to do the edging. I have looked at all my other Coriolis socks, and mostly I've done a seed stitch border. I don't know. So, and as long as I don't know, I can't finish them or rip them back. So they're just sitting there unfinished. I'll tell you in the next episode. Well, next English episode for sure, because in a few months I hope I will have made a decision and finished these. So what else? Toe socks. So I am running quite a bit actually, and when I'm running I'm wearing these really cool Vibram 5 fingers shoes. So in those shoes every toe has its own compartment, like in a glove. And so I have to buy special socks for running, and I thought, well, I can make my own, can't I? I totally didn't think of that until, was it Stephanie Bold, I think, was posting her toe socks. I think it was her, I'm not quite sure. So I ordered 3-ply Regia sock yarn. Interesting thing, by the way, you can't get it. Well, you can still get some, but it's no longer produced. So stock is dwindling. There is another 3-ply sock yarn from online. Opal, yeah, Opal, that's the one. I haven't tried that, and that only came in really bright colors. And since I'm always looking a little ridiculous in my Vibram 5 fingers anyway, I thought I'd rather go with something gray. So the pattern I had is a Funky 5 Toes, I think is the name, and that is you're supposed to do a toe-up sock that starts at midfoot. So you do like provisional cast on for I don't know, 60 something stitches. I did 72 for these, and then you start knitting in the direction of the toes and do the toes first, and then you unpick the provisional cast on and knit the rest of the sock. Since I really dislike knitting socks toe up, I decided to just make it a cuff down sock. And since I'm so much in love with this strong type heel that Annie Fletcher always uses, I have made these with the same kind of heel, only I found that if I did the gusset increases every other row, the heel would be a little too short for me with this yarn, so I ripped it back, and I've done the increases every third row. And then when I reached the point where I had to knit the toes on the first sock, I again sat there and said, I can't be bothered to figure out how to make the toes, because I have to make them to fit my own toes, not somebody else's idea of how toes should look. This is the really a good thing about these socks. I mean, the Vibrant Five Fingers have standardized toes, and my toes are not standardized in any way. So most of those little toes on the shoe don't really fit me very well. But when I make my own toe socks, I can make them fit my actual toes. Only that means I have to measure and look and calculate a bit. Well, I'll do that soon. I think I might have more headspace and calmness in my mind. Yeah, right now, the next 4 or 5 weeks, and then I'm traveling again, and then everything will go crazy, and then it's July, which is always crazy, and yeah, we'll see. So those are the toe socks, and then I started another pair of socks. By the way, when we did the renovation, I found there were all these piles on my dresses. I think I've talked about them at length, and so I had to dismantle all the piles so we could paint the walls. And I found that I had like 2 garbage bags this size full of mending, and at least one of them is socks, and those are either hand-spun socks or socks that are made from Socks That Rocks yarn. I had this sock club 1 year and never again. It's pretty expensive, especially if you figure in international shipping, and so I didn't do it again. So my whole sock drawer is really stuffed. I mean, right now the basket where we keep the dirty wool clothes and socks and such, because we wash those extra, that's full, and my sock drawer is not empty at all. And now I have like a garbage bag of hand knitted socks that just need mending. I don't think I should buy another dresser. I think I should maybe get rid of some of those socks. And so I'm knitting socks all the time because I love knitting socks, and it's so great to take them with me. But I don't really need any more socks. So I've decided to slow the whole process down. And this is a hand-spun sock. The pattern is, again, Annie Fletcher. Its rib is the new vanilla, or something like that. Something with vanilla and ribbing. And the yarn is, I'll show you, will I? I'll show you later when I talk about spinning, but so that I don't forget, I'll just pull it out right now. I started this sock before I went to Hamburg for the Mensa annual gathering. That was really fun, but I was still totally exhausted and tired and sore from the balcony renovation. And then I went to Hamburg and stayed up too late every night and didn't get enough sleep, and it was also exciting. Yeah, so... But I knitted like half the sock while there. I might have finished the first one, but again, this sock yarn seems to have come out thinner than I had planned, and I used the 1.25 millimeter needles again. Oh, I can show you. They're really thin. So these are 5 of them, and they are just one really, really thin needle. And it's really funny because I met a friend while in Hamburg, and she was knitting as well, and we were getting about the same kind of fabric, and she was using 2.5 millimeter needles. That's like size 2 in US sizes. So I had started the sock with 64 stitches, and when I tried it on, it was really snug and tight, like the Coriolis sock. And so I decided to rip back and start again with 72 stitches. I hope I won't regret it after I washed the sock, because after I will have washed the sock, sorry, grammar, because I didn't wash the yarn after spinning. I usually do that, but I thought if I didn't and only washed the sock after knitting, then maybe the fabric would become denser and tighter. And because I'm such a loose knitter, I'm thinking that maybe socks will stand up better over time when they're not knitted as loosely. And so I'm trying several things at once here. We'll see how that goes. And then, sorry, I can't read what I've written without my reading glasses. Yeah, that's everything that I've knitted. Then the only thing that I crocheted was the Sweet Pea blanket, and I'll try to hold it up to the camera. Sorry for those of you who have this on audio. The blanket is really beautiful and really big and really lovely, and you really should go to the Attic 24 blog, where Lucy has posted the pattern and tons of photo, and the whole crochet along was a lot of fun, and I loved sitting there. It started in January, and so I spent every day, I spent a bit of time sitting with this blanket, and it was growing bigger and bigger, and after 2 or 3 weeks already, it was something that was warming me while I was working on it, and I really love the colors, even though there's a lot of pink in there, and I'm definitely not a pink person. But I don't think I'll do that again as much as I loved it, because this is all polyester yarn, polyacrylic, and while this is not as bad as using a plastic grocery bag and then putting it in the trash, I don't think I really need plastic yarn in my life. I'm even trying to get away from sock yarn with acrylic. So yeah. And I don't think that I'll do a huge project where I buy wool yarn and then dye it the colors that I need for the crochet along. But all in all, it was very joyful and fun experience. And there were many weeks where I was working on that. And since the blanket is really easy, it's just this one stitch pattern that goes over and over and over, and it's really easy to learn. So you just sit there and you get into the rhythm and you crochet along. And I'm still longing to have another crochet project, but right now there isn't one. Sorry. So that was the only thing I crocheted. I did start a cowl, but I don't, something didn't work about that, and then I just ripped it back and knitted instead. And the other thing that I had wanted to crochet is the Starry Night cowl, but this is the first part of the Starry Night cowl. So this is hand-blended merino and blue-faced Leicester fiber. And this is how much I have spun so far. This is supposed to be fingering weight yarn when it's done. It needs 2 colors. I'm having a problem because the bobbin is rolling off my desk here. So I have 2 colors. This is a turquoise blended with a bit of black. Sorry, you can't see this because of the plastic bag. Do you know this thing where you have the zipper bags and you're not quite sure if the zipper is open or closed? That was the one. So yeah, here we are. So this is mostly bright neon turquoise with a little bit of black, and the other color is dark blue. I was all excited when I started this project and took it with me to one spinning meeting, I think, and then I worked on it like twice, and that was it. I still plan on doing it, but not just now. Okay, looking at my notes. So there was the Advent calendar fiber from Steffi's Wolle. I really love that. I got the 200, no I didn't. I got the 120 gram calendar this year, and I spun my portion every night. So that was really nice for Advent to have this calendar and sit down with you know, you unpack it and then you see how the color is going to change. So this year the color change was slower than the year before. So the year before you almost had a new color every day, and this time you kept spinning the same color a little longer, which was not quite as nice to spin, but probably much better for the end product. And I didn't bring the yarn, sorry. I thought I had the Advent calendar in the socks, but those are 2 different Advent calendars. So the one that I showed you in the Coriolis socks, that's the calendar from 2017. And the one from this year, yeah, I actually did get the 250 gram. Well, I have no idea. I have 2, 3 skeins of really beautiful, colorful yarn. I think I'm going to knit a shawl out of it. And yeah, and I sat down, as I said, every night, every morning I would pull out the little paper bag with the yarn portion, and then I'd divide it into 2 equal parts and would spin it at night, and that was really, really nice. I'm thinking of doing something similar this year, but I don't think I'll buy an advent calendar. I'm thinking about giving myself a spinning project and saying, okay, every day you spin this much, so that I have the experience of sitting down every day in this very hectic time of year, so that I can calm down and spin and have a bit of peace and quiet without having to spend as much money and without having to find a use for this really, really colorful yarn that I wouldn't normally want to knit with. Then, yeah, that one I already showed you, the Merino and Blueface Leicester for Starry Nights. That's a stash, by the way. I had some leftover fiber from other projects, and I carded that with my little hand cards and started spinning that. And then the one I finished was the Merino Silk on the Bosworth Featherweight. That's the yarn that I showed you the sock from, and this is the other ball. I don't know if you can see the structure of the yarn. This is really interesting. This project was born when I think this is not only fuzzy, but yeah, so I'm trying to get this to focus. Don't you love it when podcasters have technical problems? So this yarn is a cabled yarn, even though it doesn't look like it. It is 4-ply. You spin 2 plies in, I can never tell, let me see, Z. I think I spun the first 4, I spun 4 plies, each in Z. That's clockwise, isn't it? And then I took 2 of those each and plied them Z, so they were very, very lively. You have all these kinky yarn, and it looks both kinky and limp. It's really funny. I don't know if you've ever plied your yarn in the wrong direction ever. So when you do that, you get a lot of twist built up, and the wheel isn't really pulling the yarn in, and so the yarn looks a bit lifeless, and it's still totally kinky. So when you loosen your grip, it kinks all up. So that's what happened with this one as well. And then I took the resulting 2-ply yarns and plied those in S, I think. Let me see. Okay, I can do this. I need my glasses. So this is S. Okay, so I applied it in S direction. And now it looks as if it were a 2-ply, and it's pretty thin. But in fact, it's a 4-ply. I have no idea how this will behave. It's knitting up very nicely. This is really thin and not very bouncy, but it could be due to the fact that I haven't washed it yet, so I don't know. I'm knitting these socks and they feel a bit limp and inelastic as well, but we'll see when I have finished them and washed them how they will turn out. I'm pretty sure that this will be better wearing than a chain ply or 2-ply merino socks. Funny enough, somebody told me that yes, sock yarn always needs polyacrylic, otherwise it won't be durable. The only ever socks that I made from merino nylon weren't durable at all. So they wore through, I don't know, in the blink of an eye. On the other hand, the spinning was very loose, so don't know. The interesting thing is that I have made a lot of things out of this merino silk blend. So this is basically the same fiber that I have made the gloaming tide shawl from, that I have made, I don't know, several hats, mittens. It's basically my go-to fiber. Comes in several colors. I've bought it I have orange, I have yellow, I have a bright red, a dark red, and this green. And so we'll see how that goes. Of course, this is merino and silk, and merino is not the best fiber for socks. Yeah, I know that, but this is like something I had on hand and wanted to start quickly. I remember that Abby Frankermont told me about this method of cabled yarn, of making cabled yarn, and I wanted to try it, and I started spinning it while going to the Regensburger Revelry meeting, and I think that was in 2014, I'm not quite sure. So this was my go-to spindle project which was in my bag for ages, and I didn't work a lot on it. My new go-to spinning project, I don't know, I started this at least a year ago, probably 2, 3, no idea. This is a really nice Turkish spindle from IST Crafts. I bought it and didn't like it at first, and then I decided that I need to just use it more often, and then decide if I'll keep it or not. And right now I love it. This is, I think, Targi from Ätherische Öle. I bought it at the Wollmarkt in Vaterstetten in 2016. I think I started spinning it pretty right away, but yeah, I'm not spinning a lot, but I try to change that. So right now this is my go-to spinning project. So yeah, another 4 years or so, and it will be finished. For now, I have finished one of those tiny turtles on the spindle, and this is the second one, and I've only spun 10 grams or so, so a tenth of the fiber. So a long way to go. The other thing that I have going is the project wardrobe. Big name, not really any progress. I started making a pair of yoga pants and got stuck in the middle. And yesterday I found out why. I was suspecting that the pants were too tight. And I was, yeah, I was right. Yesterday I took heart and stepped into the legs of the pants. They are not sewn together yet, and found that yes, these pants don't fit. One of the problems is that I have gained some more weight, which is horrible, and I hate it, and I want to do anything to change back to my lighter weight, but that includes not eating as much, and yeah, sometimes I find that really hard. So so that's one thing. I will hopefully lose some more weight and fit back into the pants, but just right in the middle of the night, I have to say, I woke up in the night and lay there and think, I could just take the seam ripper to the yoga pants and sew them again with make the seam allowance smaller. There's a bit of margin, not much, but maybe half a centimeter. So maybe 1 centimeter or all in all. So and that might be enough, because I can wear them. It's just they're so tight that there are wrinkles like this all over the legs. So that's not a good look. So I'm hoping. And I'm also participating in Me Made May, about in an unofficial private version, so I don't post photos or anything. I just decided that I would wear me-made clothes, not exclusively, but as much as I could throughout the month, and that made me realize I need more t-shirts, and I don't have pants. So all through May I won't be wearing jeans because I have none that I make myself. So my handmade clothes, if we're not talking about socks, shawls, or sweaters, there aren't all that many. So I own the dress that I'm wearing right now that you can't see because I have a cardigan on top of it. It's the purple swing dress that I made. Then I have another one that's orange with red dots. So little extreme, not suited to every occasion. Then I have a jeans skirt that I can wear. I have one t-shirt. I have one tank top. I have a black linen dress. That's my funeral dress, but if I wear it with something else but black, it doesn't look like a funeral. Um, and then I have one dress that's probably too small, that's almost finished. That's a Q dress. And I have one pair of yoga pants that's just pieces of fabric. And yesterday I actually cutted the pieces out for a new t-shirt. The one t-shirt that I have is the plantain t-shirt by Deer and Doe, and I'm planning on making a few more because this one suits me very well. It's the shape of the t-shirt is like an A, so the size 38 fits me in the shoulders, and it's so wide on the bottom that the bottom fits my bottom very well, because I usually need like 2 sizes bigger for my pants and skirts. And skirts, not really, but pants. And so this t-shirt is almost ideal. So I actually cut out a new t-shirt yesterday, but who knows how long it will take to sew that. I mean, sewing's not my main passion. I just want the finished garment, and I don't really want to spend all that time putting pins into things and then lugging the sewing machine around. Yeah, so I'll get there, but it will take some time. So now you get to hear what I talked about in the last 9 episodes. And let me look at the time. Okay. So, my first episode was the December episode that I call Looking Back and Forwards. So usually I've been doing the year in review, fiber year in review thing that Distelfliege puts out. Only I realized that most of the questions don't really suit me. But I like the idea of this review of the year, so I just did that. And I can't really tell you what I talked about in that episode, because for that I would have to have listened to it again, and I didn't. But I know that I talked about the project wardrobe because I had really high hopes in 2018 of making all kinds of things, and I have lists and plans, and the only thing that I made was this one measly t-shirt and nothing else. And I'm thinking that I still have a list about what I want to. No, I haven't. So I have a list of what I want to sew in the future, but it's not in this bullet journal. It's in the other one that I don't have here. Sorry. So I know I already have fabric for 3 more t-shirts, 1 pair of yoga pants. I really need another skirt. I want one that's a bit longer. I have the jean skirt that I have is Miette, and I really like it. And I love the pockets. It has huge pockets. You can carry everything with you. I love to wear it when I'm traveling because it's jeans. It's very, very sturdy, and with the pockets you can put everything in there. But it looks, I don't know. Since it's the Miette has a silhouette that goes really far out, like maybe you should wear a petticoat underneath, and with the jeans it's really standing on its own almost. And then I'm not quite sure about the length of the skirt. It hits above the knee, and I think that's not the most flattering length on me. And well, with me being over 50, maybe I don't need to wear mini skirts anymore. On the other hand, if I had really beautiful legs, I probably would, but I don't. And so I've been thinking about the Hollyburn skirt. That one looks like it would fit me very well and go with everything. And I'd like to make one of those out of cord maybe, or denim, something like that. I find that I get a lot of wear out of those heavier, sturdier skirts. I also have a mietem that's more of a summer skirt, and that works pretty well too, but I like the other ones better. And I used to have an olive green cord skirt, and that one I wore all the time. It went with everything that I had and for almost every occasion. So I want something like that. And then on my list, there's a short coat. I need a jacket for when it's not raining and it's not really hot, for those in-between seasons. And we call that a Übergangsjacke in Germany, like transition jacket. And so that's when it's not winter and it's not really hot, but you know, you need a jacket, but not a raincoat, for like for those times when you need a denim jacket. And I'd like to have a coat like that so I can wear it with my skirts, because that's a slight problem in my wardrobe right now. I have a rain jacket that's very sporty and very bright red, and I have a very old and ratty looking parka-like thing, and I need something that's a bit dressier and not as ratty. And I have a pattern marked for that. I just don't remember it right now. It's from the Sewaholic, who made the Hollyburn skirt pattern, and she has a coat. It's unlined. I think I want to make that, and lots more t-shirts, and at least 2 skirts, and 2 tank tops, and then maybe 1 or 2 summer dresses. So I have the list. I have the fabric for 3 t-shirts and 2 pairs of yoga pants, including the ones that are in progress right now. And so I'm hoping that my sewing mojo will come back and that I'll actually sit down and make all of these clothes so that I can wear them. So that was in my review, and then I talked a bit about what I wanted to knit and do, and yeah, and I'm really hoping that this will be the year where I finally will publish a novel or 2. You can keep your fingers crossed for me. I'm working on it, and everything is going much slower than I would like, as usual. On the other hand, I really don't have as much time as I think I have. Though I have to say, in March I did a month where I went mostly offline. Though, to be fair, my husband is more offline than I am when I'm mostly offline. So my husband doesn't have a smartphone, is not on Facebook, isn't on Twitter, isn't on Instagram, doesn't read blogs, doesn't post to his blog, belongs to no online forums. He basically turns his computer on when he starts to his teaching day, checks his email. So email is the only thing that he uses. He doesn't get any newsletters. So he's maybe online for 10 minutes a day, if that. And he uses the internet to research things and sometimes to watch YouTube videos of concerts or guitar tests or amp modifications or something like that. So he uses the internet for research, and sometimes watches films on YouTube and does email at the end. And when I was mostly offline, I was still posting daily on my blog. I was still checking Instagram and Reverie and everything at least once a week. And I tried to check email only once a day, but failed miserably and checked 5 to 12 times a day. I have to say, I did feel pretty good when I was more offline. So I'm trying to establish new habits and not be online as much. I really like my friends in the computer, but having space to think is a really good thing, and not being bombarded with look at this and do this and oh my god and all the time, not the worst thing to do. So second episode 122 was about how to document your projects. That came about because the lovely ladies from the Wollkanal podcast, if you understand German, you should really check their podcast out there. Oh, they're gorgeous. They're so cute, and it's really interesting. I always learn something. They are two ladies. They work together, and it's a really good podcast with high quality audio, and I love it. So they were talking about a workshop where they were, and where they learned how to document their spinning projects. And I was thinking, I didn't know people didn't know that. So I did an episode on documentation, on how I make samples and stick them in notebooks. I actually found some notebooks here, and I want to show you like this. This is my craft notebook from 2013 to 2015. Here is a sample of weaving. That's for the blanket I made for my father for his 75th birthday. So what I do, oh my, I just found the notes that I need for the sweater that I want to make for my husband. This is really serendipitous. So cool. So here I have the project name, when I started it, what needle I used, my gauge sample, like which size I made, all of these things. I used to write that down here. Usually when I spin, I used to have these index cards where I wrote which fiber, which wheel or spindle. I usually only do that for wheel spinning, funny enough, because you do the spindle spinning mostly by feel anyway. So, but for the wheel projects, I'd write down which wall, which wheel, and then I'd take a short sample of like the unplied single and put it onto the card, and then I'd do the plying sample and put that on there, and a washed sample, and took notes. And that's really helpful. If you do that consistently, you can find all kinds of things again later. I also often use my notebooks for jotting down which needles did I use, which gauge did I get, which size, which modifications. That's all really, really helpful. I also have this very cool notebook where I made when that was way back when I still thought I'd become a knitting designer. Well, I am a knitting designer because I designed knitting, but so here's sketches for socks where you can see that I can't sketch. I'm really bad at drawing. And this is like sketch for a cable and all of these things. I often stick sticky notes into these notebooks. it's basically, you can do it any which way. It's just you have to. No, you don't have to, but it's better to do it in a way that you can find everything again later, which is why I love the bullet journal. I've been using it for years now. I don't know how many years, but there are like 5 filled notebooks. This is the infamous Leuchtturm 1917. So it's not Leuchtturm, it's Leuchtturm. It's but I know you can't say when you're an English speaker usually. So this has an index, which is extremely helpful, and it also has page numbers. So I can look at, what do I have here? I'm looking for a project, but I don't find anything. Planning Dathan pullover from North Ronaldsay, for example. So that's on page 63. So I go to page 63, and here I have all my notes for that project. So every time I want to know what I thought about, I can. Or, hey, here are my notes for the Advent calendar socks. Wait, just a minute. Here. And that's even more interesting because that's just a regular page in my bullet journal. Messy, not pretty at all. So for all of you who think that bullet journals should be like you see on Instagram with all the lovely hand-drawn ink flowers, no, they don't. And my notes on the socks are just these few bullet points at the end of the page. And so I jotted down that I had done it with 60 stitches, that I have used 1.5 millimeter needles, that I've made a whirlpool to, and then knitted 25 rounds without any increases, blah, blah. So I wrote down everything that I needed to make the second one the same as the first. So that's really helpful. I've used general notebooks for everything for ages. I think the bullet journal method with the index has improved my notebooks tremendously because I can find things again. It's still all chronologically. So, for example, I was just telling you that I found the blank canvas sweater notes. So I would have had to go back and see when I made that to find out where to find the notes. On the other hand, at that time I was still putting everything into my Reverie notebook, and that's another one that's really good. If you put everything there, you can find it real quick, and it's really helpful. But I have stopped putting everything there like I should ages ago. But it's, who cares? I just have to find everything again when I need it. And you always think that you will remember everything. You won't. Trust me on this. Okay, what else? Episode 133 was about the UFO drawer. Another one that I got inspired to do by the lovely ladies from Volkanal, because one of them talked about her UFO drawer. I don't have a drawer. I have like piles and piles and piles. And after I did that podcast episode, I put all the UFOs into one of those garbage bags. I have a whole garbage bag full of UFOs in different stages of being finished. I have a hat that I think I don't like, but it needs, I'm not even sure if it still needs blocking or only I might only have to take a picture of it. This is really embarrassing. I have 2 finished sweaters in there, and I'm thinking that they probably won't fit me, but they still need blocking, which is totally ridiculous because I could block them to my measurements and then they would fit me, and then I could try them out and find out if they fit into my life or not. I don't know. There are a ton of things and I don't remember them all, but I'll try to link every episode so that I'm talking about. I have a list of topics at the end of the show notes for this post, and then I link the to the show notes for that episode, and there should be pictures. I hope there are pictures of my UFOs. So yeah, and I wasn't sure if most of these UFOs are UFOs because I wasn't sure if I should finish them or not. But best thing would be to just finish them, and then if they don't fit me or I don't like them, then I can decide what to do with them. But having that hanging there in limbo for years is really not the best thing to do. So I try to get better, but I don't think the owl again will become a UFO. But my motivation to finish it is not really all that high now that it's May. On the other hand, I'm just sitting here wearing a bulky wool cardigan, so maybe I should. The next episode after that, episode 124, was about vague plans for projects. I found that I have all these projects in my head that aren't really projects yet and aren't really planned fully. It's just that's the vague part. And I think after I did that episode, I sat down and made a list for Project Wardrobe to say, okay, I need this and this and this and this. I have the fabric for these 5 things, and I have these 2 things that are in progress but unfinished. And then I'd like to make this and this and this and this, and then these things would be nice. And having a list makes this really much easier because it's all in my head and it just pops up and goes down again like soap bubbles. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember I wanted to make this thing. And then, it would be nice to have a second pair of running shorts. I really should make some. And then the thought goes away again, and it never really gets into a stage where things get actually done. It's just like, oh, it would be nice to do that, or wouldn't it be cute to do that? And then it's gone again. So I don't know if everybody has that. It used to be that I would see all these things. Maybe I think I'm still doing that because I just looked into my Reverie queue the other day and there are hundreds of patterns in there that I had planned to make next. So sometimes I was looking for a pattern for a certain yarn that I had, or I was thinking, oh, my husband needs more cowls. I want to do something in crochet, so let me look at crochet cowls. And then I would put some of those in my queue, or think, oh, it would really be neat to do some more color work, mittens. Nobody needs color work. I'm just, actually, my husband could need another pair of color work mittens. He has one and he wears them and he washes them all the time. I tell him that you don't need to wash wool things all the time, but he doesn't care, so they get washed like every other week. Yeah, I should make some for my husband. So that was a vague and talky podcast, and I can't really remember what I was talking about, but it was mostly all these projects like, oh, it would be nice to have a lacy cardigan, or oh, I have this fiber that I spun up and now this yarn could become something. So about that. Then the next one is the stripy sweater inspiration. Oh, that was so cool. I have subscribed to the Knitting Season Club by Kate Davies. It's unfortunately it's on hiatus because Kate Davies her health didn't permit her to continue the club as planned, which is a bummer. And she had all these nice essays and all these really great patterns. And she was working on 2 books at once. One were all the knitting patterns and essays regarding that, and the other one was about creativity. And I really enjoyed that. And one of the patterns that she did for that club was the Dathan pullover. It's stripy, stripy, stripy. It's random stripes, not all that regular, and it's made from all the shades of Millerochi tweed. That's one of the yarns that she sells and has made for her shop. And I really like the sweater, and I looked at it and was like, I want this. I want to make this. The yarn is out of stock. I could spin for this, and then I dye, or first dye and then spin. And I have 400 grams of North Ronaldsay fiber, and I would love to make that into that pullover, even though I would probably never wear it because it would be just too scratchy. And it has these dolman sleeves, which are really impractical, don't fit under any coat, and I can't really wear them when I'm teaching because I try playing guitar with dolman sleeves. So I would always have to pull them up real high so that I could move. I don't know, but the project is still haunting me because I had this vision of having made this thing all by myself and like recreating the shades of the yarn from my computer screen, of course, and would be marvelous. But yeah, quite a big project. I'm still not quite sure if I'll do that or not, but the idea was just so perfect. I don't know if you know that. It's like you sit, you get this inspiration, and then you think, wow, that would be so cool. And then you think, but it's such a lot of work, but it would be so cool. Yeah, so I'm not quite decided on that. But thinking about that, that's so much fun. Then I think I need to speed up a little. It's really awful with being my age. You always need your reading glasses. And now you know why I never lift my head while recording, because then the lights that I used to light my face, you'll see them on the glasses. It's really ugly. So let me see. Next one was knitting and depression. There are quite a few resources about how knitting can help with depression and anxiety, and how it's good for you to knit when you are have depression or are depressive and are anxious. And I find that I use knitting a lot when I'm in social situations. I don't really have social anxiety, but still it helps me with all the people and all the sounds and all the smells, and everything is just so much. And talking with people is really hard. And so I just sit there and knit my sock, and then I can look down on my sock when everything feels overwhelming. And you have this repetitive motion that's meditative. You get something done. I mean, if you just knit there one stitch after the other, eventually you have a sock. That's a good thing for somebody who is depressed, who feels like he can't do anything. It's soothing. Yeah, and a lot of people weighed in that they used it the same way, or somebody said she had panic attacks. I like anxiety attacks, and that it helped with that as well. I also sometimes use it for meditation, though not really all that often. And so in that episode, I linked to a few resources, mostly in English. So for those of you who only get the English version of this podcast, you can find a lot good resources about knitting and depression there. Then, since after the knitting and depression episode, the most feedback I got was not about knitting and depression, but about sock construction. Because I was showing the toe socks and was talking about knitting toe up or top down and different heels and the toes and such, everybody was weighing in with their opinion on sock construction, how you can knit a sock, how you should knit a sock, which way of knitting a sock is the most enjoyable. I'm saying top down on DPNs. I use 4 DPNs, and I do mostly I do the kind of heel where you do the gusset first and then do a bunch of short rows and then are on your way. When I learned how to knit socks, it was all about the heel flap, picking up stitches, and that's a very traditional way for Germans to make socks. And I always thought that Germans were all knitting with 5 DPNs, but I've since found quite a few people who said that they are using 4 DPNs. So it takes all kinds. So I was talking about sock construction, how you can knit socks, what I like best, and different kinds for almost an hour. So definitely a topic I can geek out on. And then I think it was Stephanie Bolt again said that, yeah, those are not the only ways you can knit socks. Of course, there are some sideways constructions. I haven't tried those yet, but I might. So that was my episode on sock construction. And that led to another episode about spinning sock yarn, which is a topic dear to my heart. And I found that I had already done 2 episodes before that about the same topic. I was talking a lot about the Ply magazine edition about socks. There was a lot of information in there, and I found the different takes on what yarn's the best for socks very interesting. And then I pulled out the Twisted Sisters sock book that talks about dyeing and spinning and knitting socks. And I had, I don't know, some other things, and talked about all of that. And Sarah Anderson has done an experiment to find out which kind of yarn is the best and most hard wearing for socks. Abby Frankemont did a post on Revelry about the topic, and she did a really controlled experiment about sock yarn as well, though she then lost one of the socks, so that ended her experiment. And then last episode before this was about knitting in the 80s. I talked about how knitting in the 80s was different from how we're doing things now. And I talked about how I got started on knitting in the late 70s and how we all had this acrylic yarn and were knitting these really boxy sweaters without patterns mostly because I didn't have much money, and somebody said, yeah, she did all these projects out of her head as well, but she didn't she often didn't finish things, and I always did because I had to, otherwise I wouldn't get yarn for the next project. My mother was very strict. You only ever have one project You have to finish that before starting a new one. The end. I'm really happy that I can do it my way these days, but there is something to be said to have to finish a project before you can start a new one, because then you actually finish projects and then you don't end up with a big drawer of UFOs. I talked about several sweaters that I made, but I'm starting to run out of time. And I especially talked about a sweater vest that I knitted from white cotton yarn that was in interlock. I saw a friend wearing an interlock sweater and I looked at it so long enough that I could figure out how to do it, and I made a sweater of my own. I'm no longer really sure how to do it, but I think I could figure it out again. But that was what I did a lot of the time in the 80s. I looked at sweaters that people were wearing and tried to figure out how to make them, which is not as hard as it sounds. And I still know a lot of people who say, I never work from patterns. I just imagine what I want and then I'll make it. I'm very happy to use patterns because I have a lot of things in my life where I have to think really hard, and knitting is not one of them at the moment. So I'm all good. I like to be able to do my own thing if I want to. So I have to finish now. I hope that this episode wasn't too rushed. Thanks for listening. You can find everything I talked about on the blog at creativemother.de, and these days there is a little tab on the top of the blog where you can click on Handgemacht podcast, and that brings you to a link where you can find all the podcast episodes, because with me posting daily, the blog is pretty cluttered, and finding a certain podcast episode is a bit hard. You can find all of that at creativemother.de. You can send me an email at susanne@creativemother.de. That is also my PayPal, by the way. And you can find the podcast on Patreon, where you can get a really nice essay from me in German once a month. When you I do 2 podcast episodes. Patreon is $1 per podcast episode, and then you get the essay. What else? You can find me on Reverie as Creative Mother, and on Twitter and Instagram as Free Jazz Mama. And now, thanks for listening again, and I hope to see you soon. I wish you happy knitting. Bye.